Hi GOR, this is Unit 6, Lesson 6, and today we're going to do trig applications. So we've already done this a little bit, so it's just some more practice. And I'm actually going to start with example 2 and 3, and then I'll go back to example 1 because that one's a lot more tricky than 2 and 3 is. On all of these, if you don't have a picture, you absolutely want to draw yourself a picture, but they've given us pictures for each of them. So example 2, Mrs. Smith's cat is stuck in her backyard tree. A fireman positions a ladder against a tree branch and rescues the cat. The ladder was extended 22 feet. All right, let's put that on our picture. So the ladder is 22 feet, and it makes an angle of 62 degrees with the ground. All right, so the ground is always this horizontal line right here. What was the cat's vertical height in the tree? So this is what I'm trying to figure out, the cat's vertical height in the tree. All right, so it's just a matter of reading through the problem and being able to label your picture. So this is opposite and hypotenuse, so I'm going to use sine. So sine of 62 equals opposite over hypotenuse. I put a 1 under here. All right, I'm just using the regular sine button because I already have the angle. I cross multiply. 1 times x is x. Sine of 62 times 22. Just make sure when you put in your calculator sine of 62, close the parenthesis because a parenthesis pops up, times 22. Okay, so this is what's going in your calculator right there. And I want to find this to the nearest, what does it say? What was the cat's vertical height in the tree? It doesn't tell me. So let's do it to the nearest tenth. All right, so put that in your calculator. Sine of 62, close the parenthesis, times 22 is 19.4 feet. Okay. And number 3 is another one that's not too bad as well. So from the top of a barn, a pigeon spies a pile of birdseed on the ground. So this right here is my birdseed down here. The pigeon is up here. The angle of depression of the seed is 38 degrees. So technically, remember, angle of depression is at the top outside of the triangle. But because these are alternate interior angles, I'm going to put it in the bottom corner of the triangle. The height of the barn is 28 feet. All right, so this is 28. So this is my right triangle right here. So this is 28. I'm just going to draw an arrow right there. It's 28 feet. Find the distance from the pigeon to the seed. So remember, my pigeon is up here. I'll call that P. My seed is down here. I'll call that S. I'm trying to find the distance from the pigeon to the seed, so that is my hypotenuse right there. All right, so I know my opposite is 28, and the hypotenuse is x. So opposite and hypotenuse, I'm going to use sine. Sine, the angle comes next, of 38, equals opposite, which is 28, over hypotenuse, which is x. I'm going to put a 1 under here. Cross multiply, and I get sine of 38 times x equals 1 times 28 is 28. I'm trying to solve for x. Now, x is not the angle. I have the angle, so I don't need to use that inverse. I need to just divide by sine of 38. So in your calculator, you are doing 28 divided by sine of 38. And again, we'll just do this one to the nearest tenth also. So that gives me 45.47. Nearest tenth, 45.5. That's how far away the pigeon is from the birdseed. All right, and then we're going to go back to the first one, which was the one that's a little bit trickier. And unfortunately, I didn't leave us a lot of room right here. But as shown below, a canoe is approaching a lighthouse on the coastline of a lake. The front of the canoe is 1.5 feet above the water. An observer in the lighthouse is 112 feet above the water. At 5 o'clock, the observer in the lighthouse measured the angle of depression to the front of the canoe. So here's the problem right here, is he's just measuring it to the front of the canoe. So I'm going to draw a line straight down, but it's not going to the water. It's going right here. So that is my right triangle. So at 5 o'clock, he measured it, and that angle was 6 degrees. Remember, so it's up here outside of the triangle. This is my triangle that I'm making in purple right here. But because they're alternate interior angles, I can put that 6 down there. All right. And 5 minutes later, the observer measured and saw the angle of depression to the front of the canoe had increased by 49 degrees. Determine and state to the nearest foot per minute the average speed at which the canoe traveled towards the lighthouse. So now I'm going to have another triangle. I'll do that in red. So this was 5 minutes later. This is now my triangle in red. Sorry, that's a little messy. So it's the same height. But the angle of the angle that I'm going to put here is not 49, it's 49 plus 6. So the angle that I'm putting right here is going to be 55. So I have two triangles and I'm trying to find out, first I'll do the one in purple. Okay, so I'm trying to find out this distance right here. So I'm going to call that X. So I know that, what do I know? That this is 112. Oh, actually, and I don't want 112. 112 is all the way down to the bottom right here. I want this height right here. So I have to do 112 minus 1.5. So I'm actually going to use what am I doing? 1.5, 110.5. So this is going to be 110.5. Because remember, this was 1.5. Because that height of 112 is going all the way to the water, but I'm measuring this to the top of the canoe. So the numbers I'm going to use the 6, I'm going to use the X, and I'm going to use the 110.5. Now this is going to be a tangent problem. So the tangent of 6 equals 110.5 over X. I'll put a 1 under here, cross multiply. Tangent of 6 times X equals 110.5, and to solve for X, I'm going to be dividing by tangent of 6. So basically I have 110.5 divided by tangent of 6, and that gives me 1051.337. And I'm going to switch colors for my red triangle. Again, I'm going to try and find this. I'll call this Y, just so it's a little different than my X. I'm still using tangent, but this time my angle is going to be 55. Tangent of 55 equals 110.5 over Y. Put a 1 under here, cross multiply. So I get tangent of 55 times Y equals 110.5. And to get Y by itself, I'm going to divide by tangent of 55. So this is definitely a tricky problem. Lots of places to make mistakes. But you show your work even if you forgot to, say you use 112 instead of 110.5. As long as you're showing your work, you just get a minimal deduction for that. So in your calculator, 110.5 divided by tan of 55 is 77.3729. So I want to know how far I traveled. I'm going to have to take the 1051.337 and subtract my 77.3729. And that gives me 974 feet that I've traveled. But I want to know the average speed. So I have to take that 974 feet, that's how far he traveled, and he did that in 5 minutes. So 974 divided by 5 is 195 feet per minute. Okay, so trig is definitely a popular question that is tested on the Regents a lot. Sometimes it's an easy question and sometimes it's a more involved question. Obviously, something like this would be a part 4 kind of question on the Regents. So we'll practice all of those again tomorrow.